You arrived at blackswanradio.com. I appreciate you for tuning into my podcast. I am Rondell Jordan, aka DJ blackswanradio.com. This is your domain, your destination for worldview conversation and flight music. This is my domain for encouraging exploration. I'm a big proponent of scholarship because it breaks down to economics, exploration. These two things go hand in hand. And it's the cure for the colonized mind. I am not an anti-system person because I understand that the system has its place and its purpose. It came to be because of its necessity. There's a default, thank God. A default operating systems for those who have not yet come into the knowing, who have not realized our true state of being. What that means on this planet. In the garden which we live in, the Garden of Eden, as the offspring of Adam, domesticated Africans with mixed bloodlines in the indigenous and Asiatic or Caucasus Asian. This makes us a mutation or a unique DNA genetically. This is the reason why it's the Genesis. This is our Genesis. In the garden, we are made to believe that the fruits of knowledge are forbidden. And so it takes an uncolonized mind to kind of question that. Why would the fruits of knowledge be forbidden? Well, the truth, the answer to the question is hidden in plain sight. In the same story. There may be deception, but the Lord is very specific when he said, "Behold, the man has become like one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put out his hand and take also the tree of life, and eat and live forever." Therefore, the Lord God sent him out of the garden to till the ground from which he was taken. And put into the garden to tend and keep it. But as long as he was tending and keeping the garden, he was being kept in the darkness. You see, it says clearly that the Lord God caused the deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. That's chapter 21. Genesis 2:21. And the Lord God caused the deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. People sleep over that because they focus more on the next part where they talk about his rib. But no, his eyes was not open until the next chapter in verse 3, when it says the eyes of both of them were open and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. They instantly became creative. They covered themselves. They realized that they were uncovered. Why? Why were they left in the darkness, uncovered? Right? But as soon as they got the knowledge, it says their eyes were open. Just as the serpent said to the woman, that you will not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be good. You will be like God, knowing. Originally, it said you'll be as God's, knowing. To know is really where my content is directed. I was thinking earlier today that knowledge makes a man unfit to be a believer. One of the most scariest people on the planet Earth is people who will accept an allegation without asking for proof, requiring no proof. And the reason why that person is extremely dangerous is because they may accept an allegation about you without proof, without evidence. And that can produce a false witness. And these kinds of people you want to stay away from, because what good is it to live a good life just to have someone come along and ruin it without any doing of your own? Most people don't recognize, but I will highlight to you today that after chapter 3, if you look closely in the chapter 4, you will realize that the Lord and God are no longer operating together as one unit. They are now separate deities, separate entities. And chapter 4 is about the Lord and how He operates. There's a lot of hidden messages in it, including communion, the establishment of sin. Yeah. There's a lot of nuances that we can pick apart. In another episode, because this is just lead us down many other rabbit trails, but the concluding statement of this chapter 4, occurs after Adam knew his wife Eve again, and she bore a son and named him Seth. Now Seth is related to the story of Cain and Abel because Seth was in opposition with his brother Asar. The Greeks came and changed the name to Osiris. But if you know this story, it's about one brother rising up against the other. But Seth's definition should strike you, because it is the reason why Adam's third son is named after Seth. Literally, it says, then men began to call on the name of the Lord. That's the last statement of chapter 4. Subscribe, because you want to know why. Because it couldn't be more important. I don't think it's anything in this book more important than understanding why the Lord is named after Seth. Going into the chapter 5, it's a key component in the great deception. But in verse 5, it says, so all the days of Adam lived were 939 years. Why did I say 39? Excuse me. 930 years, and he died. Then he goes to Seth, lived 150 years, and begot Enosh. Enosh, of course, is named extremely close to Cain's son Enoch, which came before Seth was even born. Cain was the last name of Tubal Cain and Nama. Lamech came before Seth. But chapter 5 uses the spirit of confusion. This is the reason why Seth is used here, the deity Seth, the god of confusion, where it's going to con you and to fuse together the lineages of Cain in order to get to Lamech, who will eventually beget Noah, and Noah will eventually represent the new beginning, for he is the father of the three sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, where the new world order, or the world was repopulated by. And so earlier I was telling you about our genetics being mixed race. This is actually what creates a holy one, a whole one, or an avatar, right? I am the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star. Yeah. He says, everything is really artistic, poetic. God is a poet. And Jesus is his teacher. And this is the reason why he says, I am the root being the Nile River, the offspring of David. That's pretty self-explanatory. Ashkenaz in the Kemetic. Who's the Kemite? The fruits, the offspring of Ham. Who's the offspring of the Shemites of Shem? That's the Mesopotamians. And what about Japheth? That's the Assyrians in the north. The Germanic people, the Ashkenaz. So the first